There was a time when advocacy, I think in the CEAP, was basically done by a central committee in Manila. That we're trying to change. The central committee in Manila now has to deal with the regions, and the regions have to deal with the central committee. So advocacy means that CEAP is talking about important issues to the members of CEAP, but it also means that the CEAP as an organization is talking to people outside of the organization with the hope of being able to influence change. The advocacy tactics, the advocacy strategies can be very mild. We can talk about dialogue, we can talk about research, we can talk about networking, but we can also talk about pressure. I think that one of the things that we want to bring to bear in this advocacy effort is that we are an organization of some 1,200 schools spread all over the Philippines, as was stated earlier, not only in the richest portions of the Philippines, but also in the most secluded portions, the poorest portions of the Philippines. So therefore, a very clear claim that we represent a constituency in the Philippines that is very significant. And with this, we want to bring our influence to bear on people who are making decisions in the executive and people who are making decisions also in the legislature of our country. We are representing Catholic education. This was underscored by our president. The Catholic education, and for a lot of this we have to be talking to ourselves. We have to be talking to our schools to make sure that the manner in which our schools handle the Catholic dimension of education is up to standard, up to par, theologically sound, etc., etc. And that the manner in which Catholicity is communicated is not in such a way that Catholicity becomes an island in itself, but Catholicity becomes the bridge by which you affect society, the bridge by which you affect policy, and bring about some of the changes that are dictated by Catholic values. So there are many areas that we wish to engage in. I will only give you some. Some have already been mentioned. I will simply underscore them. We are Catholic schools, and we are therefore very interested in educational reform. We, in the past administration, they talked about the need in our entire school system of adding 2 years in order to be able to be on par with the international standards set either by the Bologna Accord or by the Washington Accord. Our position then, as it is now, was that these 2 additional years have to be brought into the basic educational cycle, not the tertiary educational cycle as was being proposed under the last administration, but in the basic educational cycle. We fought and we argued, and now we have Brother Armin, who will implement. All right. We have long felt that our tertiary level institutions have to be able to deal with our Commission on Higher Education in a manner that is rational, in a manner that is predictable, in a manner that allows rational discussion of important educational policies. For too long, educational policy in CHED was haphazard and not thought out and contradictory and did not benefit from consultation serious consultations with stakeholders. We are insisting that this change, that the manner in which the CHED deals with the tertiary level institutions become rational, become predictable, become something which which promotes genuine thought for tertiary level education. And we are very, very happy that now under President Noy Aquino, Tati Liquanan, Dr. Patricia Liquanan, our colleague, has been appointed to the chairmanship of the CHED. Already we feel that there is a complete change in the atmosphere in CHED that is affecting the relationships between the government and the schools very, very positively at this time. We are insisting as an organization, no matter what the change takes place in order to strengthen basic education, we are insisting on, listen closely, tertiary level general education. Tertiary level general education. Somebody said, how is it that in other countries it takes them 12 years to do what it takes us 10 years to do in this country? The answer is easy. You push the extra 2 years upwards into college. And you don't do in college what you ought to be doing in college. So now, thanks to Brother Armin, they're pushing these 2 years back down so that on the tertiary level now, on the level of college, they can now give proper humanistic and leadership formation for our college students. So this has been a CEAP advocacy point. It's an advocacy point that we have carried to our partner networks, the Cocopea and the like, but a very strong insistence on humanistic formation for all on the tertiary level. Therefore, the rejection of some suggestions that college only be about professional training, that college be reduced to nursing education or engineering education or medical education without the humanistic formation. As part of our mandate in CEAP, we feel this humanistic dimension to education is very important, and we are very, very happy that under the new administration, it is clear now that this is being integrated into the plans for tertiary level, reformed tertiary level educational system. We would like to address the inconsistencies in legislation. The legislation that pertains to CHED and the legislation that pertains to the Philippine Regulation Authority, the PRC Commission. Many of the problems of administrators in our schools is that the laws between CHED and the laws that belong to CHED and the laws that belong to the PRC conflict. And we say, coming from the Bible, no man can serve two masters. So this is an area where we feel urgently interventions have to be made so that this can be corrected. Father Jerry already mentioned, we want to take the politics out of support for poor students, so more educational service contracting rather than the educational voucher system. And through our advocacy committee, we want to create a school of wise legislators who understand education and who therefore will not legislate laws which contradict other educational laws and make the educational legislation completely irrational. Are you still with me? Yes. Okay. So, that's a handful. But educational reform is a major area of our advocacy in this Catholic Educational Association. Now, another very important area where we feel as Catholic educational institutions throughout this country, we have to be able to contribute to peace in Mindanao. We have to be able to come to a common reading of the problems, the historical problems in Mindanao, so that nationally people will understand that the Mindanao peace problem is not just a problem of Mindanao, it is a problem of the entire Philippines. It is a problem brought about not just by people coming from Mindanao, but it is a problem that has been brought about by people coming from all over the Philippines entering into Mindanao. That reading of history, which will give a more just and balanced reading to the history of the Mindanao problems, including the problems of the relationships between the Christians and the Muslims and the Lumans. This is a history that must be told, understood, and appreciated in all of our Catholic schools, so that together this body of schools can work together towards greater peace in Mindanao. Our advocacy here has meant that some of our scholars are now working on new textbooks to be able to present the history of Mindanao in a more balanced fashion throughout the country. This particular Congress is about environment. Let me just say that, as has been said, there are many schools that have different projects in environment, in the ecology. Many schools have also gotten involved to such an extent that some of their personnel have almost lost their lives. I can say that from the experience of my own school. We have we have not hesitated to stand up against the environmental destruction caused by mining in the country, brought about by foreigners investing in mining in the country, despite the fact that our environmentalists have said that these mining activities go counter to the interests of the Philippines. We are looking at the current 1995 Philippine Mining Act, which, if you read it, wherever you come from, allows all manner of environmental destruction, all manner of exploitation of our people and our country at practically no cost to the foreigner. So we are looking at this and working hard to evolve with certain congressmen an alternative mining act. And we hope that we can get the support of all of our schools here. Finally, let me say that we are concerned about reproductive health. And we are concerned about the problems that policies in this regard bring about. Therefore, the CEAP is in dialogue with legislators in order to bring about legislation which will not only affect the Catholic community, but the Philippine citizenry, in the hope that we can bring about a juster policy relative to reproductive health.